Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by uppercutchops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste the best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, of course, the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Hell, we need to try those half-pound prime USDA prime Wagyu burgers. Best I've ever had. Hell, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call and find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. Yes! Yes! All right, welcome in, everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody else watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Time Warner, and WOW Cable TV affiliates, thanks for joining us, as well as everybody else watching on Hotel TV and those streaming on pick your favorite streaming platform. And hello to our friends on Facebook, on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure you check that out. Thank you. All right. Now, we have the NFL playoffs. We have an ongoing issue with the NFL playoffs as we enter the final week. Who's alive? Who's not? What the hell's going on? How about the AFC? How about the Kansas City Chiefs? We already know that they're the number one seed overall. And, of course, well, that gives them the home field advantage throughout their conference's postseason. And, of course, the Chiefs are not playing for anything in the regular season finale against the Broncos, so expect a couple of weeks' worth of rest for Patrick Mahomes. But that means Carson Wentz will probably be in there, and he's looking for a job for next year. So don't count out the Chiefs on some kind of performance issues, because you never know, folks. These guys may actually show up and play a little bit of football. It might surprise you. Now, Buffalo Bills, of course, they're headed up to Foxborough to play New England in their regular season finale with nothing to gain whatsoever. The Bills are locked into their number 2 spot, so they'll host the worst conference wildcard team during wildcard weekend. And, of course, the postseason potential opponent could be Denver, Miami, or Cincinnati. Cincinnati, we're going to get to them in a second. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson and company can clinch the AFC North, which they still haven't done, with a win against Cleveland or a loss by Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. Now, of course, both of those games are going to be played on Saturday, and the Ravens already clinched the playoff spot in the first place, but not the conference, or better yet, not the division title. Now, the regular season finale will decide if the Ravens are hosting an AFC number 3 or traveling to Houston on a wild card weekend as the number 5 seeded wild card team. So if Baltimore wins the AFC North, they will host either the Chargers or the Steelers. No easy task for either of those. Now the Texans, nothing is on the line for them in week number 18 versus the Tennessee Titans. And of course, the Texans already clinched the AFC South in week number 15, but they can't really improve their seeding, so look for those guys to be resting some of their players because they're locked into the number 4 seed. So the Texans will host either Pittsburgh or the Chargers or the Ravens during Wild Card weekend. So the Pittsburgh Steelers now, they have a shot at the AFC North crown if they win against Cincinnati. And Baltimore loses at the Cleveland Browns. That's the only way that can actually happen. Now, Pittsburgh already clinched a playoff spot. The regular season finale will decide if they're hosting a division championship during Wild Card weekend or on the road as the 5th or 6th seeded Wild Card team. I mean, either way, they're not going to be an easy out, that's for sure. If the Steelers win the AFC North, they will host either the Chargers in round 1. Actually, that's exactly what they would do. They would host them. There is no either. If the Steelers earn the 5th seed, they'll visit the Texans. If they fall to the number 6 seed, they'll face the Ravens. Now, the Chargers, they walk into Week 18 at the Raiders with a wild card berth already in hand. LA will be either the number 5 or number 6 team in the playoffs, in the AFC playoffs. So the Chargers will be the 5th seed if they beat the Raiders and Pittsburgh loses to the Bengals. At number 5, the Chargers would face Houston in the wild card round. The Chargers will remain in the number 2 seed spot if they lose versus the Raiders or the Steelers beat the Bengals. A 6th seed would give the Chargers a wild card weekend trip to either Baltimore or Pittsburgh. Now, Denver, a win against Kansas City at home in Week 18 will give them the final wild card spot. Now, that's the best seed the Broncos can get, and it will guarantee them a postseason trip to Buffalo in round number 1. That's going to be a very painful trip if they have to take it, I'll tell you that much. If the Broncos lose against the Chiefs, they could still get into the postseason with help. In that scenario, they'd need the Jets to beat Miami and the Steelers to beat the Bengals. The Broncos will be eliminated if they lose to the Chiefs and either the Bengals or Dolphins win. Now, Miami, this is getting a little complicated, but Miami needs a lot of help. They need some help. They face the Jets on the road in Week 18 where they must win and get outside assistance. And, of course, the help Miami needs with that win, a Denver defeat at home versus Kansas City. The Dolphins would face Buffalo in wild card round number 1 if they get the final postseason win. Now, Cincinnati, they have the hardest chance at securing a playoff bid. And, of course, the Bengals must beat Pittsburgh and have the Dolphins and Broncos each lose. Now, having the Dolphins lose to the New York Jets is a real long stretch. Not so much that the Broncos would lose to Kansas City. I think that actually can happen. But the Bengals would face the Buffalo Bills and all that in wild card round if they could actually get that final postseason. Now, it's a little easier over in the NFC, I think. So the schedule makers couldn't have dreamt it up any better, or really, if you look at the regular season Sunday night game between the Vikings and Lions would either deliver the North Divisional title or the number 1 seed in the NFC and home field advantage throughout the conference postseason play. So a win in Detroit would lock the Vikings into the number 5 wild card seed, which would put them on the road in round number 1. And their opponent in the scenario would be either Tampa, the Rams, or Atlanta. Now, Philadelphia, the NFC East champion, are locked into the number 2 seed, and they have nothing to gain, really. They face the Giants in their next game, their finale, nonetheless, with nothing on the line other than the Saquon Barkley taking a shot at Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. Now, on Wild Card Weekend, the Eagles will host the NFC's worst wild card team, and their opponent will either be Washington or Green Bay. The Rams, as the NFC West champs, LA enters the last game against Sunday of Seattle with a chance to clinch the number 3 seed with a win. A week number 18 loss wouldn't lock the Rams out of the 3rd seed. They can achieve if sending a loss is with Tampa against the New Orleans Saints, and that's very unlikely to happen. At number 3, that would mean the Rams would host either Green Bay or Washington on Wild Card Weekend. The Rams could dip to the number 4 seed if they lose to Seattle and the Bucs beat the Saints, which is very likely. Number 4, at the number 4 seed, they would put the Rams against either the Minnesota Vikings or Detroit Lions in round number 1. Now, Tampa, yeah, we'll go over to them. They can make the playoffs only as an NFC South champion, and a win versus New Orleans on Sunday would do just that, which should be pretty easy. Or an Atlanta loss to the visiting Carolina Panthers. Watch out for those Carolina Panthers. They're actually playing decent ball. Bryce Young's playing quite well these days. Now, the Bucs could play their way into the number 3 seed with a win on Sunday and a defeat by the Rams to the visiting Seahawks. As the 3rd seeded team in the NFC, the Bucs could face Green Bay or Washington. If the Bucs remain their number 4, they would either host Minnesota or Detroit on Wild Card Weekend. Imagine that. Now, we already know about Detroit. Washington, they're head of the postseason as a wild card team. And it looks like it's going to be probably, well, they're going to, let's put it this way. Those guys are going to either play the Rams or the Bucs. And, of course, as a number 7, they would play Philadelphia. Green Bay, there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. Looks like they'll face Philadelphia on the road in round 1. Atlanta, there's a lot of things going on there. We don't really know what's going to happen here. But the Falcons are eliminated from postseason with a loss or a Bucs win against the Saints, which likely is going to occur. And so, look, the teams on the bubble, Seattle, Atlanta. Over in the AFC, teams on the bubble, Miami, Cincinnati. Everything comes down to the last week. Cincinnati, it's a long, bumpy road, but they can do it. We'll see what's going to happen with those guys, and we're going to be back here in a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC Sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100, again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment is brought to you in part by our friends at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Nice round of applause for them. Here it comes. It's the Kung Fu applause, folks. It's live. I didn't think it happened. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our television radio affiliates. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Over in Auburn, Alabama, WAUD 1230 on the AM dial. That's home of the Atlanta Braves. Let's go War Eagle. Big hello to our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, Yankees, and Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus, big hello to our friends up and down the East Coast, the West Coast, the Heartland, on all of our independent stations as well. There's over 200 plus that have access to this content, as well as everybody watching on television, on Pick Your Favorite Cable Provider in select markets, as well as those streaming on social media, especially on Facebook, on Chicago Food Favorites. Folks, make sure you check that out. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Yes! All right. Now, a lot has been made of the NFL's stats and records and crap like that. Week 17 report from the NFL Network and all this other stuff. NFL.com says, well, NFL stats and records, Week 17, Commanders rookie Jaden Daniels delivering in a clutch moment, blah, 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 blah. Talking about Jaden Daniels adds a finishing touch to a stellar rookie season, da, 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 da. And then they talk about the 2024 NFL draft class making history with Malik Neighbors joined three of his fellow rookies in the 1K club as he and Brock Bowers and Brian Thompson Jr. and Ladd McConkey each have surpassed 1,000 receiving yards in 2024. And of course, this is the first season in NFL history in which four rookies all reached 1,000 receiving yards. Twice previously have three rookies done so in the same season, 2021, with Jamar Chase, Jaden Waddell, and Kyle Pitts. And in 2014, it was Beckham, Evans, and Kelvin Benjamin. So those four rookies from 2024, Bowers, McConkey, Thomas, and Neighbors combined to represent only two colleges, Georgia and LSU respectively. Prior to the 24 season, there had only been one pair of college teammates to each have 1,000 receiving yards in the same rookie season with Olave and Garrett Wilson in 2022. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. joins an exclusive receiving club. Speaking of rookies, with the 23rd overall pick in the 2024 draft class, he has been on an all-time hot streak. Yes, an all-time hot streak. What does that mean? Well, NFL.com says this is, as far as rookie receivers go, surpassing 75 receiving yards in each of his last 6 games. Only Beckham, 9 games in 2014, has a longer streak among all rookies since 1970, since the merger. Now, that one's pretty good. So Thomas, who finished with 7 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown in Week 17 against Tennessee, has 10 career games with at least 75 receiving yards, breaking a tie with Beckham, Justin Jefferson, Anquan Bolden, and Terry Glenn for the most by a rookie in the Super Bowl era. All right, give you a little bit of love there. Thomas also joined Beckham, Jamar Chase, and Randy Moss as the only rookies in NFL history with at least 1,100 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. So factor in that Thomas has remained productive even after Trevor Lawrence's season-ending injury, and the former LSU star's rookie season is pretty damn impressive. Now, here's this situation with Brock Bowers. Now, he is a pretty damn good tight end. I'll give him that. Speaking of rookies, according to NFL.com, who have been ultra productive despite lackluster quarterback play, Bowers broke a pair of rookie records in the Las Vegas Raiders win over New Orleans. Now, Bowers, who finished with 7 recepts for 77 in Week 17, lots of sevens there, and it's Vegas, of course. And what do we do in Vegas?
Show me the money!
There you go. Lots of sevens there, kid. He had total 108 receptions, 1,144 receiving yards in his first NFL season. Those 108 receptions surpassed Puka Nakua's NFL rookie record of 105 set just a year ago and are the 5th most by any tight end in NFL history, not just rookies. Now, Bowers' 1,144 receiving yards also surpassed the great Mike Ditka's 63-year-old record for the most receiving yards by a rookie tight end in NFL history. Ditka with 1,076 yards in a 14-game season back in 1961. Now, Week 17 was Bowers' 8th game with at least 7 catches, 70 yards, tying Odell Beckham 2014 and the most such games by a rookie in NFL history. So, tainted records maybe? Maybe not. Giants rookie duo is a bright spot for the New York Football Giants in this season. So they've got a couple of guys that are playing pretty damn well. Leading rushing is Tyrone Tracy Jr. and leading receiving is Malik Neighbors. Both rookies reached 1,000 yards from scrimmage on the same season in the Giants' week number 17 win against the Colts, making them the second rookie duo in the Super Bowl era to earn 1,000 yards from scrimmage. The only other instance goes back to Reggie Bush and Marcus Colston back in 2006. Now, Aaron Rodgers became the most sacked quarterback, and you know what? It's Aaron Rodgers, so that's okay. He entered Week 17 being sacked 564 times in his regular season career, one behind Tom Brady, 565, for the most sacks taken by any player since 1970. And after being sacked 4 times in the blowout loss to Buffalo, Rodgers now has surpassed Brady for the most sacks, period, since 1970. And of course, a positive milestone for Aaron, well, to look forward to. What is that? He's just 1 touchdown pass away from 500 in his career, something only 4 players in NFL history have accomplished, and it's Brady, Breeze, Manning, and Favre. Now, Josh Allen makes history on rushing touchdowns. How about that one? After sneaking past the 3-win Patriots, 24-21 in Week 16, the Bills left no doubt with a 40-14 win against the Jets. And I got to tell you, folks, those 2 touchdowns for the Jets, they were both garbage time. That's really a 40-0 blowout of the New York Jets, but you can call them the New Jersey Jets. In a game in which he did not play in the fourth quarter, Allen added to his MVP-worthy touchdown total with 2 through the air and 1 on the ground, and the latter being the 65th rushing touchdown of his career. Allen tied former Hall of Famer Thurman Thomas for the most rushing touchdowns in Bills franchise history. How do you like that? Joining Cam Newton there at 63, there are only other quarterbacks to lead or be tied for the lead for most rushing touchdowns in a franchise history. Now, Myles Garrett also showcased why he is one of the best pass rushers, not to be forgotten, in what has been a dismal and abysmal season for the Cleveland Browns. But the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Garrett has continued his excellent play into his 8th NFL season. And Garrett, who turned 29 just last Sunday, had 2 sacks in the Browns' 20-3 loss to the Dolphins in Week 17, bringing his total to 14. This is Garrett's 4th consecutive season with at least 14 sacks, the longest such streak by any player since individual sacks were first tracked in 1982. And the only player with more than 4 seasons of 14-plus sacks at any of their career was Reggie White, Bruce Smith, and Kevin Green. Reggie did it 7 times. Bruce Smith and Kevin Green both did it 5 times. So that's all good stuff. In fact, we're going to give them all a nice round of applause. You know, looking at those records, I think the records are important. So, looking at these records, you ask yourself, What is important? Well, first of all, I want you to realize that from 1935 to 1936, they played 12 regular season games. 1937 to 1942, they played 11 regular season games. 43 to 1945, 10 regular season games. 1946, 11 regular season games. 1947 to 1960, they played 12 regular season games. 1961 to 1977, they played 14 regular season games. 1978 to 2020, they played 16 regular season games. 2021 to present, 17 games. Why is this important? Everyone's making a big deal out of Saquon Barkley and the rushing single season rushing record and all this other stuff. First of all, folks, he's trying to beat a record that stands. Eric Dickerson has 2,105 in 14 games. I believe it's 14 games, 16 games, 16 games. So basically he's got an extra game. If you look at it head to head, Saquon Barkley with 2,005 yards, Eric Dickerson with 2,105 yards in the same amount of regular season games. Now, those that have outgained Saquon Barkley in this single season rushing record situation, Chris Johnson in 2009 with Tennessee, Terrell Davis in 2008, has 2,008 yards in 1998, Derrick Henry just 4 years ago, 2,027 yards, Barry Sanders, 1997, 2,053, Jamal Lewis in 2003, Adrian Peterson, 2012. So Saquon Barkley is trying to break a record that didn't necessarily amount with the same amount of games. It's a bunch of nonsense, folks. Back here in a few minutes, we're going to talk more about that on the circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on air that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out the sportscircus.com for upcoming guests, a prior guest, or recorded shows, which can all be found on pick your favorite streaming platform, whether it's Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or all the others out there as well. Also, when you're at the sportscircus.com, make sure you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners that have been with us for many, many, many years. One of those is Al's #1 Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Al's #1 Italian Beef, the creators of the Italian beef sandwich. They've been in business since 1938. That's right. They've been doing it, making great food. And if you don't know what it's all about, check it out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. All right. Welcome back to everybody on radio and TV. Thanks for joining us right back here on the circus. You know, looking at the Saquon Barkley situation, a lot of people are making a big fuss about it. And they say, well, you know, he's on the verge of doing something, blah, 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 that's great, and all this other stuff. Okay, well, here's reality. Here's a heavy dose of reality. If you look at what Eric Dickerson did in 16 games, he averaged 131 yards per game over 16. Now, he broke that. He did that in 1984 with the Rams. 131 yards per game. That's a very significant number. Okay, now if you really want to compare that to something special, and if you want to look at the all-time best when it came to rushing records for a season, well, if you pin those numbers against the 1977 Walter Payton, which is 1,852 yards in 14 games, Walter actually outgained Eric Dickerson with 132 yards per game versus Eric Dickerson's 131 yards per game. And further, Eric Dickerson was on a team that actually had a passing attack, a serious passing attack. So his team was on the field a hell of a lot longer than Walter Payton's team. Walter Payton's team, back then, their quarterback was absolutely awful. I believe they had a guy by the name of Bob Avellini who was arguably one of the worst quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. And Eric Dickerson had Vince Ferragamo back then, who is a Super Bowl quarterback. And so you look at these quarterbacks and say, okay, who kept their team on longer? Well, look, it was the Rams that certainly were in a better position. They were a far better team than the Chicago Bears. 1977 Bears were awful. And so when you look at what Walter Payton really did in 14 games, averaging 1 yard more per carry than Eric Dickerson in his record-setting situation, it's Walter Payton that actually holds the single-season record, not necessarily Eric Dickerson, because if you weigh them yard for yard, game for game, and what Saquon Barkley's trying to do is he's trying to beat a watered-down record from Eric Dickerson. Sorry, Eric, you know, you're on the show earlier this year, and Eric did really well with us, and it was good, but the problem is this. Eric was on a significantly better team than Walter Payton's team. Mind you, they both did that when they were 24 years of age. But in the grand scheme of things, you say the running and passing game that Eric's team was a part of that. It was a very, very good LA Rams team. Now, you may recall that the Rams in the following year, they lost to the Chicago Bears in 1985. They were shut out in the NFC Championship game, just like the New York Football Giants were shut out. The Bears are the only team in history, 85 Bears, to shut out both of their playoff game opponents back-to-back. And they also obliterated the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 20. They allowed a grand total of 10 points in the postseason in 1985-86 Super Bowl season. That is unsurpassed, unmatched. And you say, well, Walter Payton was a part of that team, but it wasn't a rushing record situation then. Walter did it when he was on a really, really bad 1977 Chicago Bears team, whereas Eric Dickerson has that lead from a very good 1984 LA Rams football team. Saquon Barkley is on a playoff team that's seeded second, and they're going to be a real tough out for somebody. But remember, Saquon Barkley has 17 games in which to break a record. So I don't know what all the hype is, but to me, it's a bunch of nonsense. And as I look at it, I say, well, okay, look, he had all those times to do what he did. It's kind of like the passing era versus the running era. And they say, well, this guy's passing for this guy's passing for that. Total passes completed, total yards completed. Passer rating, I think, would be a little bit more of a indicator when you look at the career passer ratings of these quarterbacks. You say, okay, well, Aaron Rodgers leads Lamar Jackson in that category literally by 0.5 in the rating. Aaron Rodgers with the all-time passing leader at 102.6. Lamar Jackson's best in his career is 102.1. Patrick Mahomes 102.1 as well. And Joe Burrow, mind you, he's only had 4 seasons in the books. And Joe Burrow likely will surpass Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes in the grand scheme of things. Looking down the trough, the only active players really that are really going to have a chance to do anything would be Tua Tagovailoa. So also you got Tua, Kirk Cousins. I don't know how much longer he's got. Jared Goff is much further down the trough. But really the only team that's playing well in Miami, if Tua could stay healthy, he's got a real shot to do something. Russell Wilson is just about over with his career. But Joe Burrow is likely going to be the all-time passing rating leader. Now, that's a pretty important stat because that goes back to all eras. And passing yards per game, that is a very tainted situation as I see it because, again, when you look at the passing yards per game, you say, well, wait a minute. You've got a league that's pass happy right now. So, and passing attempts per game. Now, pick sixes in their career also is going to be based upon a heavily tilted passing game. Sacks of yard per loss, remember, pass, pass, pass. You're not seeing the I formation, the T formation. You're not seeing that kind of a game. So you have to look at some of these other stats, say pass completion. Now, pass completion actually makes a little sense because that hits all eras. And Joe Burrow right now is the all-time pass completion percentage leader. Now, mind you, it's through 4 seasons, and Joe Burrow has a lot of work to do. But if you go back in time a little bit, these stats go back. Let's see, we've got Peyton Manning at number 17, and then we go back to Steve Young, 1985 to 1999. Steve Young is in the top 30. But of course, as a pass-happy league, you still got to complete those passes. And that's really how you have to look at these stats. Because are they watered down with the amount of games, or is it watered down with a pass-happy team? Same thing with sack percentages and whatnot. Quarterback rating we just talked about. Game-winning drives, I think, is a pretty important one as well. And you look at the career game-winning drives, and of course, Terrific Tom, but you can call him Tom Terrific, as Tom Brady has 58 game-winning drives. Peyton Manning at 54, Drew Brees 53, Roethlisberger 53. Matthew Stafford is still in this one at 49. So Matthew Stafford technically could catch Tom Brady. Russell Wilson, you're off the charts, and I think that's really it. So Matthew Stafford is 9 behind Tom Brady. He's still got some life left in those legs. So I don't really know. But comebacks are kind of important as well. When you look at all of these stats, passes intercepted, again, those are going to be, I think that's going to be tainted as well. But the one thing that we haven't really looked at, we're not going to much, is the playoff leaders, because certain quarterbacks have a hell of a lot more reps in that area than others. And so, again, Joe Burrow doesn't have a ton of experience. He's got 4 years of experience. But the one thing that I look at also is like the stats when it comes to kick returns. And remember, Devin Hester changed the game. It's because of Devin Hester that the NFL moved the kickoff line up 5 yards, which basically created touchback after touchback after touchback. Devin Hester was that guy that created havoc and mayhem on the field, and he scored a lot of kickoff returns and punt returns, but his kickoff returns was what triggered it. So if you look at the career kickoff returns, you've got yourself a whole different animal. The career kickoff returns are one thing, with Brian Mitchell leading the world in total kickoff returns. And honestly, folks, if you look at all of these stats, whether it's return yards and all this other stuff, Brian Mitchell, the only person that has ever outgained him in the NFL is the great Jerry Rice. Brian Mitchell belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we're going to exhaust this right now, and we're going to come back with something a little different on the college level. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Thanks for joining us, everybody, on today's show. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and we're going to talk a little bit about some college football right here real quick. And it's actually not so much college football. It is the name, image, and likeness situation. This, as I see it, is an enormous problem. It is an ongoing, enormous problem. How about this? Never mind this is brought to you by, this segment's brought to you by the Sports Circus. All right, and welcome into everybody. So how about this? How about 6 former Florida State players file a lawsuit against Coach Leonard Hamilton over the name, image, and likeness compensation situation? How do you like that? Oh, yeah. So now we have deception. Now we have payments. Now we have paid professionals on the amateur level. The whole thing just sinks to high heaven. So it doesn't matter who's writing about this at any point, because the whole thing, honestly, it just stinks. So, of course, the plaintiffs allege Hamilton promised each of them $250,000 in NIL payments from the coach's, quote, business partner.
Show me the money!
That's right. So 6 former Florida State basketball players filed a lawsuit against their former coach, Leonard Hamilton, over unpaid promises of NIL compensation that totaled $1,500,000 and acknowledged within the documents that they boycotted a practice last season over the missed payments. Now, the legal complaint filed in Florida's Leon County Circuit Court is an unprecedented and fascinating filing in the era of athlete compensation, as roughly half of all former team makes shocking claims against one of the college basketball's more accomplished coaches. How do you like that? So 6 plaintiffs, Darian Green, Josh Knuckleberry, Primo Spears, Cameron Fletcher, Deontay Green, and Jalen Warley, allege that Hamilton promised each of them $250,000 in NIL payments from the coach's business partners. And of course, the players never received the payments, despite Hamilton's promising the money to each member of the 23-24 team in 2 separate team meetings, as well as individual conversations with some players and their families. Several players transferred to Florida State under the assurance that they would receive the money. As evidence of the NIL promises, the complaint includes multiple text messages exchanged among players, between players and Hamilton, and between players and Will Cowan, an executive with one of Florida State's NIL collectives. Now, in one of the more striking revelations, FSU players say they boycotted a practice before Feb 17 game against Duke, and they walked out of the gym during the practice to show their frustration over the unpaid NIL promises, and they intended to boycott the game as well as the claim it says. So, Hamilton discovered the plan and, in a meeting in the team's file room, re-emphasized that the money would be in the players' accounts the very next week. Players competed in the game, losing to Duke 76-67. Now, in several messages to Cowan, and conversations, of course, with Hamilton, players communicated that they know the money to pay taxes. They needed the money to pay taxes. And, of course, rent, car notes, and that they were all tired of the lies. So look, they had money to pay like everybody else. In the middle of last season, Green, a team leader, texted to Cowan that, quote, this money situation is weighing on a lot of guys and affecting the guys on the court, and explained that he was trying to get the guys to understand the delay, but the payment, quote, it's hard when they have been told $250,000, close quote.
Show me the money!
And I'll show you some playing time, apparently is what they're saying. So Florida State finished last season 17-16, 10-10 in the ACC. And, of course, the 76-year-old Hamilton had a salary of $2.25 million as part of a 5-year contract. He struck with the school back in 2021. He's in his 37th season as the head college basketball coach, presiding over the Seminoles program since 2000 and, that's right, 22 years, and taking them to 8 NCAA tournaments and the 2020 ACC regular season championship. This year's team is 9-4, 0-2 in conference, and includes 6 players who participated last season. Now, none of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit is currently on the team, and the eligibility of Green and Nickelberry expired after last season. The 4 others all transferred, many of them because they were never paid, including Spears to UTSA, Fletcher to Xavier, Deontay Green to South Florida, and Worley to Gonzaga. And the complaint could be amended at a later date to add other former players. The lawsuit is the latest public revelation of the chaotic nature of the NIL era of college athletics, providing a behind-the-scenes peek of an unregulated system in which boosters and even coaches are funding or promising to fund college rosters. So over the past several months, plenty of the stories have surfaced. Just this past season, Matthew Sluka, a starting quarterback for UNLV, he left the program after he says a coach promised him $100,000 in NIL deals that he never received. Last year, former Florida quarterback Jaden Rashada, he actually committed, now playing at Georgia, filed a lawsuit against the Gators' Billy Napier for an unpaid $13 million NIL payment promising to him during his recruitment. And at Tulsa, several players claimed they were never paid thousands of dollars in NIL commitments made by former coach Kevin Wilson. You see the common theme here, folks. Communication or lack of thereof between the coaches and their booster-backed NIL collectives have been problematic hallmarks since the NIL era began in July of 2021, when the state laws forced the NCAA to permit athletes to earn compensation from endorsement deals. And the elimination of the NCAA's amateurism rules, combined with the lack of guidance and enforcement, NCAA is handcuffed by the court rulings and has resulted in a messy system in which school, the donors, and the pool of cash are to be distributed to a particular roster, allegedly. However, collectives, even those affiliated with the wealthiest programs, are struggling to raise enough money to fulfill commitments made to either retain or recruit athletes, many of them needing direct financial assistance from institutions, a move that, will not necessarily within the NCAA guidelines, is permitted through several state laws. And of course, the next 6 months are expected to be one of the most, dicey times in NCAA history as the organization transitioned into athlete revenue sharing. As part of the landmark House Settlement Agreement, schools will be permitted to pay athletes directly, moving the player compensation system from boosters to the institutions themselves. As schools brace for the implementation of the revenue sharing era in July, each school can pay as much as $20.5 million annually to their athletes. Coaches are taking reductions in their salaries to help fund the rosters. And that includes Florida State football coach Mike Norvell, who announced earlier this month that he had agreed to a reduction of $4.5 million in his 2025 salary. Now, the Seminoles were 2-10 this season in a disappointing follow-up to last year's ACC championship that won 13 games. So meanwhile, the basketball program is the target of the latest NIL relation issue within the sport. And the complaints say all hope is lost now for the $1.5 million to be paid after 4 of the players moved on and 2 exhausted their eligibility. Hamilton's actions were called despicable. And it is important for the court to punish him and prevent him from hurting other players with such promises the documents actually say. That's not me. That's what the documents allegedly say. Then, of course, the lawsuit brings 4 counts against the coach, including breach of contract, promissory estoppel, fraudulent misrepresentation, and inducement, and negligent misrepresentations. And a plaintiff's request from the court or $250,000 each in compensatory damages, and unspecific punitive and exemplary damages, and interest at high statutory rates is what is being sought. So a particular Florida-based attorney who filed the suit on behalf of the plaintiffs said the plaintiffs attempted to recoup the promised NIL payout and avoid litigation, but communication with FSU's outside counsel could not resolve the matter. Now look, this goes on and on and on. Let me tell you something, folks. There is an ongoing issue here, and here's what I see. What I see is a lack of evidence by the players. The players may have been told X, Y, and Z. But the question is, do they have a signed contract? Do they have something signed in ink from the coach? So the burden of proof lies on them to provide that as the plaintiff. The defendant merely has to defend what's being thrown at them. As I see it with my own legal knowledge, I say, well, it seems like there's a lot of holes in their argument. In fact, there's so many holes that some of the players went on and moved on to other schools in which they got paid, almost like a family law situation in divorce court. If there is alimony being paid from a spouse to another ex-spouse, well, once they get remarried, then that alimony is canceled. And the same thing goes for child support. So as I'm seeing it, these players canceled their own alleged, claims against the coach and against Florida State University. And it's unfortunate that money is standing in the way of everything right now. And honestly, I'm ashamed for these kids. I'm ashamed for their parents. I'm ashamed of the coaches. I'm ashamed of the universities, what they represent now, because all hope for academic excellence with any student athlete, for the most part, because of this NIL thing, has been flushed right down the toilet. Whatever happened to academic All-Americans? And what about doing something special for those kids that are actually doing the right thing academically? They're not necessarily looking for payoffs. All they're looking for is an opportunity to further their education and to further and enhance what they represent to themselves, their institutions, their families, and their communities. I think that's really what these things should be focused on, and not so much give me my money. My money, my money, my money, my money. I'm sick of that. Play the damn game. Go to school because you want to learn something. Go to school because you want to do something for your future. Don't go to school to get paid and wreck the amateur standing situation, because all of these kids are paid professionals. They are no longer amateurs, and the whole system is an absolute dumpster fire and needs to be blown up. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's going to do it for today's show, and we'll see you in 23 hours on your favorite station right here. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.